Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut with Brian Galke, and we are Aces53. And what that stand for, I'll let Brian explain because it'll take 2 hours. So I guess I will.
That's right.
I'm just Aces53 stands for attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile. 53 is the first joker in the deck. So it's really 4 aces and a joker, but we've just shortened it for the show. And the joker is that unique ability you bring to the table or you learn it. Like Brian has this coaching and his other stuff he talks about when he teaches you how to do the facial recognition.
Yes.
Sign up for his coaching today. He's got group coaching and individual coaching. And you can reach out to Brian at selltheskills.com.
That's right. And what about you, Ed? Besides get Ted's book?
No, I'm working on I'm putting together my course because I don't have the course, but yeah, I mean, it's a little different for me for coaching, for people, helping people get into homes. I have had some people reach out who want to do stuff, and I'm starting a group coaching and to help you with certain things like FICO scores and credit and other stuff, because even if you have good credit, there's a way to make it better to have great credit.
Yeah.
So
yeah. People often confuse too that they're like, oh, well, I'm good on Experian, all these. And then when you go get a loan, they're like, oh, well, yeah, but there's other factors. So I think that was an important thing in your book was you went through and explained to people, what are the steps they need to go through? Like, for example, I didn't know until really you taught it to me that when you start a business, because you have to have income for so many years, you can't get a good loan right away. You know, you have to go through certain steps to do things. People just think, oh, I'll start a business, and as long as I can cover my bills, I'm good. It's like, to a degree.
Yeah. Well, I just ran into that was one of my past clients. I helped him get into the house, and he was on disability long term. And then they decided to start his electric, business where he does he's an electrician. And so they reached out to me 2 years later, and it's like, oh, you've only been showing 22,000 in income.
Yeah,
because the company brings in 200 grand, but after they write everything off and it's down to the bottom number that gets moved over to the front page of the 1040. Yeah,
that's something that when people are like, oh, start a business, you have all the write-offs and you don't have to hardly pay anything in taxes. But then there's the downside, like you said, that's great if you're already in a house, but if you want to get a house, not so good.
Yeah, but there's other programs that we have, but you need 20% down really for those, which is bank statement loans, where we just go off of what your deposits are. I've done that with a bunch of business owners who I've had one where he was a manufacturing firm. He would design the circuit for the people and then have it manufactured for them. So he'd get all this money in. And so it showed like he was making 10 grand a month. I'm sorry, $10 million a month.
Oh, okay. A slight difference there.
Yeah, look, a couple zeros, just a little accounting, no big deal. Just 2 zeros. Just I moved the decimal point the wrong way 2 times. So, and so he was able to buy the house he wanted. Where before in his actual tax return, I think it showed 200 grand of income, which wasn't enough for what $1 million property he was looking for. And then I had another gentleman who is in the real estate business where they build multifamily, huge complexes. So they push the stuff into the next year, into that project, the next project. I call it like the Trump taxes. And it showed that he'd made nothing, but he brought in $2 million to himself, but it shows on his tax return, no money. So again, bank statement program. So
the reason we're talking about that is obviously this is a sales related show, but it's all the things that you have to learn to become the authority in your industries. You have to tell people, look, there are other ways to do it, but that's because you put in the time and effort, you study, you know what's going on, you stay up to the latest trends, what's changed, what hasn't done. That's why people trust you to come back. Is it's a fluid industry, right? Not everybody knows interest rates, but they don't know what's going on with programs and what are the various options. But that's why people come to you, is because you've built that authority in the real estate space. And you know your shit when it comes down to what's possible. Sorry, mortgage business.
That's okay. People get it confused all the time because they always think I'm the real estate guy because I have a real estate radio show. I know real estate. I know mortgages. I know it all because I have my broker's license as a broker in the real estate industry. I just don't close transactions. I don't do wholesaling. I don't do all this other stuff. I understand it and I can do it. It's just not something I do.
Makes sense.
And some people I would say you're a dumb shit for not doing it. Yeah, probably over time.
Yeah, you never know. Hard to tell.
Yeah. So last weekend you were at a door-to-door conference or something?
Yeah, door-to-door con, Sam Taggart, really cool story. So let's talk about this as authority. So Sam Taggart, grew up Salt Lake City, used to knocking on doors for religious reasons, if you get my drift. But then he went into,
No, not at all.
Yeah. So a lot of Mormons there in Salt Lake City, and what do? Knock door to door. And then he went on a mission and spread the word and things. Then he went into door-to-door sales. Like, so even as a kid, what was he doing? He was selling, putting your address on the curb, then, knocking on doors for other things. But what he noticed that was really missing in the industry was it was very much competitive hatred towards each other. And he came up with the idea about 7-8 years ago. Well, this was door-to-door con 7. So at least 8 years ago, came up with the idea of, why don't we bring everyone together and let's all learn and get trained together and kind of share tactics and techniques? Because rather than having a scarcity mindset that there's not enough out there, he looked at it as there's plenty to go around. Why don't we learn together, but then we can compete out on the street? And there was several thousand people there. I'll be posting pictures probably tomorrow or the next day of, he brought in really good speakers. Kent Clothier was there. He brought in Sean White.
For people who doesn't know who the Kent guy is.
Oh, sorry. He's huge in real estate. Matter of fact, I went and sat and listened to him watching some of the facts that he had were just crazy. Let me find one. I'm looking for it right here. So, okay. So they flipped over 10,000 homes in the few years he's been in real estate.
Wow.
And he gave an interesting talk on, how much time do you have left? Time's ticking away regardless. How are you going to spend it? And he did the same thing. We've probably all heard from other speakers, but his is the average age for women is 82. The average age for men is 78. So then if you multiply how many years you have left, do the subtraction of that number from your current age, then multiply it by 0.67 because you got to take out time for sleep. That's really how many days you have left. So you take that number, multiply it times 365. That's how many days you have left on the calendar, statistically speaking. Now, somebody's going to argue, because there's always going to be somebody that says, yeah, but with modern medicine, we'll live to, so much more. This is just the average, right?
Who wants to live that long?
Yeah. But and then he talked about the myth: go to school, get a job, work till 65, then live. And that's the cult I was raised in. Is, we talked about this just at the dinner table the other night. Growing up, it was, you got to get a good job, go to good school so that you can get hired by a good company. And we used to make fun of the entrepreneur. Entrepreneur used to be a bad word not that long ago. I remember a guy I went to high school with, he went to go work at McDonald's and people made fun of him until he ended up owning a store for McDonald's. Then all of a sudden it's like, he flew past everyone. Now that's not the case with everybody, but when you're taught, go to school, get a good job, work the rest of your life, for a few weeks of vacation, it's just a different mentality than a lot of the people. I was sitting in a room and they were talking about bringing in $10 million a month in business and how do they scale past that? I'm over here going, it's just in different rooms than what I was in at the 9 to 5 level. And it's just crazy. One of the people.
So hold on. Was that 10 million in profit or 10 million in sales?
10 million in sales. So they're probably pulling in 6 million in profit.
Really? You think they have a 60% profit margin?
Yeah, it was high ticket sales. So usually that's a pretty good margin.
That's a lot for
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's a lot profit.
Yeah. Well, if you think about a lot of coaching, once you create the course and the concept, it's not having to put in that much more for it.
But there's only so much time that you have, again, according to your numbers that you just came up with. Yeah. That's like, Henry had that chart where you put in the dots. That's just no, thank you.
I think our buddy Joe, he's got the calendar goes on your wall of the average age, life expectancy, and you cross it off, and so you can see how much time is left.
Yeah, it's kind of great. It's kind of depressing.
Yeah,
it's how you look at
favorite. Let's talk to my favorite person that was there, Chris Voss. So having his book, Never Split the Difference, met him in 2019. Funny story. I was still employed at the time, but I found out he was speaking here in Dallas and my company wouldn't pay for it. And I, at the time, wasn't going to pay $5,000 to go for the day. And so what I did is I found out he posted like checking in for the venue or something like that. And I went and snuck into the private club that they were at. And then when everybody went on a coffee break, I walked back in with him. I'm like, hey, can I go ahead and get you to sign my book? And after he signed it, we took a picture. He's like, I didn't notice you here earlier. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I'm not in the part of the class. Thanks. So then I took off and I told him that story the other day. But man, he was really good on stage. But I got a chance to go in the green room and talk to him for 20 minutes. And here's what impressed me. And I'm going to do a post about this later. But you know, they always say don't meet the people that influence you, because you never know what it's going to be. And I know the technical phrase is don't meet your heroes, but I think hero is an overstatement. But I like meeting people whose books I really admire. And I went in, I thought, okay, let's see how this is going to go. And I got a taste of my own medicine, because I realized when people talk to me, they think, is he looking at my face? The whole time I thought, is this negotiator, this FBI hostage negotiator? What's he doing to me while we're talking? So I'm overthinking the conversation. But he was super nice. He said, hey, look, I appreciate, we talked about his book. I talked about how I teach it to schools and some of the factors about critical conversations and things. And then he said, you know, the real key is to learn from more than just me. And he mentioned some other people he's looked at, and he goes, but what you have to look at is when you're following different people who teach any subject it is, the question is it a subject that they've learned through practice, or is it looking back? And so two of the examples that we could use, or actually he used, is Robert Cialdini, who wrote Influence and Persuasion. Well, he was actually running studies as at ASU of all the theories. They were testing it, like, you know, go into somebody's house. What they found is if you put a small sign in somebody's yard, then you could always come back and make a bigger ask. But if you just went and said, can I put a big sign in your yard? People said no. So he did all these studies. But then you have Robert Greene, the guy who wrote the 50 Laws of Power, the various ones. He's looking at history and reverse engineering it. And so you have to take a combination of both when you're studying things. Who's put it into practice and who's studied people who were successful with that practice. And it was just neat, because he could have made it all about him, but instead he asked questions, genuinely nice guy. And you would, of all people to understand this was in the green room before he goes on stage. And so I thanked him afterwards and said, hey, I appreciate that time, because for some speakers, that's a sacred space where they have to put AirPods in, you know, they don't want to be disturbed, breath techniques, meditation, whatever some people do. So I tested it, because I didn't want to be that, you know, almost need a restraining order guy. But he was super open and friendly, and I knew, okay, his time's coming up here soon. Let me leave. But there's some speakers who won't talk to anybody before they go on stage. Now they're open books afterwards, but they have to mentally get in that preparation space. And he was super cool.
I understand that. You know what I mean? Both of us do. I mean, some people, they're so nervous, even though they're who they are, they're still nervous. Some of the people we know who have done amazing, and people that, you know, they are the worst. They're the most insecure people we know, and they go on stage and they're just nervous. That's just, they don't want to be talked to. Like you said, maybe he was like, yeah, I'm Chris Voss. I don't need to worry about this. I get to go up there and talk. That's like me. I could talk about, if we're talking about real estate and finance, I can gab all day. But if we're going to talk about something else, I need to focus on what I'm going to be focusing on, because I haven't talked about it. Now, being president of Rotary and running now into my 7th month of running it, I don't even sweat the big details now, right? It's just like I have a PowerPoint that kind of run. I don't have an agenda anymore. I just do this PowerPoint, and then every Wednesday night I have to adjust like 2 slides, so I keep it up to date all the way through. So
yeah. Well, it's funny. So I did speak at Door to Door Con the following day, and I got up on stage. The 45 minutes flew by, and people came by and said, hey, you were my favorite speaker. Where can I find this? You know, it's always kind of nice to hear. But the reason I tell that story is a week earlier, I sat in, you know, a lot of different people are offering the 5-day challenges. And I was in a 5-day challenge. I'm like, okay, everybody can get 2 minutes to speak. And they didn't tell us what order we're in. They're like, okay, Brian's next. And I stumbled like I did 2 years ago when I started doing this, where I was like, my voice was cracking. I'm like, who the hell? Why is this small Zoom venue? Do I sound like a complete amateur? And then put me on stage in front of, you know, a couple hundred people, and it's a different story. So it's interesting.
I'm sorry, I started talking when no, it's not the slides. It's the fact that you're set up on stage. You already have your time of each one you're going to do. Because even if your slides weren't there, you could talk about it. But to be on Audible for 2 minutes, but on a Zoom you got 2 minutes. Well, what do I say in those 2 minutes? That's so great. So you need to have a 2-minute thing now, a 5-minute thing now, a 10-minute thing now, and have all those different things, and then have 5 different starting points in case you forget where you're at, so you can pick it back up. Yeah.
That's exactly what I did wrong, is I didn't have the first 60 seconds memorized, because they didn't tell us that time. And I had my daughter that day. And so I didn't know if I missed my time or not. So I wasn't expecting to speak. And then they said, oh, you're up. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's one thing Steve taught me was have your first 60 to 90 seconds memorized. And once you have that, that's when you get past your nerves and everything. But to your point, you got to have different talks available. What they teach in a lot of like book yourself solid and other things is what's your one sentence about what you do instead of I'm in mortgages or I'm a public speaker. What else do you have? So there's some people who teach, that you kind of say, well, sure, let's hear yours.
I thought you maybe were asking me.
Yeah, let's hear it.
The reason I fuck with you and interrupt you is because I know you're it's to help you. Do you understand that?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I enjoy conversation back and forth.
No, but I interrupt you to mess you up with your train of thought to where you're thinking so that you down the road, whenever something happens, it doesn't matter. And I want you to do the same thing to me because that's how we get to where someone can distract us and ask, can I ask a question? I'm holding on questions still at the end. You don't do that. And then you go, okay, where was I at? Right. Kind of thing. So that's why I do that. And why people, because I've had comments where people are like, oh, this guy, he just interrupted the other guy all the time.
I look forward to it. It's like I tell people, we're like the two old men in the Muppets.
Right. Well, my statement was, and Steve even helped me with that was, I help tell people stories across multiple mediums.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's my 1 minute, not even 1 minute. What is that? 2 seconds, 5 seconds?
Well, yeah, it's your one sentence that makes people curious. And that's one of the things that's in numerous books. Like I said, right now I keep referencing Book Yourself Solid because I'm rereading that one. Highly, highly recommend it for everyone. But they say, talk about who you help, why you do it. And then if they know someone, they'll refer them. But too many people, we've talked about this before. I went to an event, not this guy's card, it's just the card that's laying on my desk. And somebody walked up and goes, hi, this is me. And it's like, whoa, that's like kiss me before you ask me to go out on the date. You have to get to know people before you try and decide, should we even do business? Do I want to do business with you before you make the offer? So people who just come up and throw business cards and tell you, why you need to know them without them asking about you, it's never going to end well.
No. Make it about the other person first.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly.
Yes.
And slowly you'll be able to get in that conversation. Take your time.
Yes.
Don't be so, and that's, I've been many places where I wanted to meet somebody and it's like, okay, they're over there. All right. Okay. They're going to be walking over that way. All right. So I'm going to go this way and accidentally run into them.
Well, I semi-stalked my way to Voss. I think I told you, there's a few people I told, the one thing I want out of this event is I want to meet Chris Voss, talk to him about his book, and then meet some other people who will become clients. And once the Chris Voss thing happened, I'm like, yeah. And then I had meeting people who want the coaching. So it worked out. But that's some of it. You and I have talked about this in a previous episode, is don't just say, I'm going to show up to an event because of a speaker. You have to have an intention of why are you going to that event? Because if it's going to just listen to a speaker, sit your butt at home and look them up on YouTube.
Right. Save the money.
Yeah. The goal of live events is the networking that takes place, is the connections you can make. That's the real reason to go to a live event. Like I said, if you're just fanboying a speaker, they don't know you're in the audience. Watch them on YouTube.
Right. So yeah, and the whole what you teach though, Brian. I mean, you should have had both of these things put together a long time ago. And I know I'm hitting. You need a group coaching and regular coaching. And the reason is what you teach. You can't learn off flashcards. I'm sorry. It's not the same thing.
It was back to what we've talked about in other episodes. It's imposter syndrome of when it's hard first to put yourself out there. And then after that to go, oh, wait, I can coach people. Because when we think of coaches, at least the way I thought of it is it had to be these high end things. And then what you realize is a coach is just somebody who can help someone else get better. That's why there's entry-level coaches, middle, and moved on. But the other thing is coaching doesn't have to be forever. And it took me a long time to understand that one as well, is some coaching is short-term versus, oh, well, this is my coach I have for, 2 years. And I think we've even talked about that is if you're only learning from one person, are you really learning?
Right.
Or should you be following different masterminds, different people to go out there? And when you realize that it can be a short-term, it made it a lot easier mentally, for me at least.
Well, I've been on some of these podcasts because of my book or other reasons. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm a coach. I teach people how to buy real estate. Really? you don't have a license, you don't do this, and you're teaching people are paying you to coach them, and that's that whole back to what you're saying, I guess only imposters don't have imposter syndrome, right?
Yes. And the problem with coach is it's such a nebulous word now.
Mentor.
Are you a life coach? Are you this coach or that? So I went to dinner with a friend, lunch with a friend last Friday, so a week ago. And what we talked about is her company name was something coach. And we're like, okay. And then she ended up changing it to consulting because coaches doesn't have the same ring as consultant does.
No.
And even though they're very similar, but people see a consultant as somebody who comes in, helps you improve, and then moves on. A coach is kind of like somebody who bestows wisdom upon you. And it's looked at that differently. But the other problem is especially if you hear life coach, sorry for any life coaches that are watching, but as soon as you say life coach, people immediately have that look of like used car salesman that get that same look of the title alone carries a stigma to it, even though your intentions can be good and you may be brilliant. You can help people some amazing things. You're going to have to learn to get past that initial stigma.
Yeah, and so I don't like consultant to me. Well, that's back in the 80s. Everybody was a consultant back in the 80s, and that just meant you're looking for work.
So totally unrelated, but it's a funny story using the word. So some of the people I hung out with in Utah, they went and crashed Christmas parties this year. And when people go, oh, who are you with? Who do you work for? They say, oh, we're just consultants, because almost every company has consultants there. So that's what they did is it's this couple, and they went and crashed 4 or 5 different holiday parties and ate and drank for free and would just say they were consultants whenever anybody approached them.
No,
that was genius.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, nice to see you getting busier and busier with your speaking on stage, but you need your QR code in the past that you didn't have, the other stuff you didn't have to be able to download. You've learned from what you've been doing, and I hope doing this podcast has helped you too in some way.
Oh, absolutely. It's because the conversations we have, and the advice you've helped me with, along with other people, right?
So my advice wasn't good enough, but other people.
Oh,
I'm saying
let me finish. It's funny because somebody else could have told me something, or you told me, and then you have to hear it a few times. And that's the good news is when you hear it from one person, you're like, oh yeah, it's a good idea. But when you hear it repetitively from different people, you're like, okay, this should be something that I should be doing. And that's the funny thing is why we talk about also have different coaches, is because sometimes the same 3 people can say the 3 different people can say the same thing, but you only heard it from one of the people. And we're all at different places at different times. But yes, to your point, when I got started, all I had was Subtle Skills, the website, no QR code, nothing. Then finally got into where people can scan the QR code and download my phone number. Why? Because they already have your phone open. And there's little subtle differences. And that's not a pun just because my name, but like when you're creating your landing pages, when people click to, let's say, download your giveaway, you want it to open in a new window, not close down your current window, because then people go get their free stuff and they leave your webpage. It's those little tweaks and tips that you've helped me with over time. Like obviously upgrading gear, right? So you sound better.
Oh, it took a year and a half.
Yeah. Can't help you on the internet part. That part, I'm stuck with where I live.
Well, you're better than where you did have. You didn't have Comcast. God. You had something else. So
I had a AT&T, the old, which was I think a 50 meg max. And so if you go look at some of the older podcasts when I first got started, it was like, and very slow, grainy. There's one guy, what's his name? Joe Soto, that I went back and watched it on YouTube. And I was like, that is so bad. I actually reached back out to him. I'm like, do you want to re-record it? And it's only because I feel bad that the other one was such bad clarity wise.
Yeah. Well, it's this last year for me growing with my book coming out and getting it to everybody and talking about it. It's like now I have this people who reach out to agents, that have done so many transactions in this last year, which is pretty good because if they're doing transactions in this last year, they're doing well. And I have appointments this week with them to sit down with me and talk about doing business together, which that hasn't happened in a long time. So,
and can we talk about what your next book's going to be?
I don't know. What's my next book? Huh?
Aren't you going to specialize your book next?
Oh yeah. I'm going to take this book and turn it just for veterans. That's the plan. That's been the plan the whole time. Right. But what hurt me was I could have had it done by now, but some company went out of business.
Yeah, big time. Oh, which I did see. I think the original founder of that company is starting up another business again. At least it looked like it from a post I saw. So we'll have to check into that. But
Yeah, well, somebody else bought that company and is running
from
it
him,
now. Yeah,
yeah.
from
Well, I mean, well, he owned it, right? And then
right,
a separate company bought him out. And that's where he likes to say he got his fuck you money from.
right, and then
That
they ran it into the toilet, and then
yes,
somebody else bought that in the toilet business.
correct.
But I
But I
mean, I
think
had it
he
already
was.
set up. I was going to do it,
Oh,
and
you
then
did?
next
I
thing,
didn't know that
yeah,
part.
yeah. I
Oh,
just had
okay.
it. They were setting me up with the same person who helped me in the beginning to do we only have to do one chapter on that has to do with loans, take a couple things
Yeah.
out, and one of the things I want to take out, I made a statement in there because when I wrote the book, it was started in 2020, 21, came out in
Hmm.
23, right? So it was 21
Yeah.
into 20 and then 22. Well, our rates hadn't gone up yet.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I'm talking to them, so I said, at least we're, the affordability's here, but rates will go up. And luckily right now we're not between 6 to whatever. And then, when we came out, we were at 6 to whatever. So, but I didn't make it's not like it was anything wrong with the book. It's just one of those statements that I wish I would have said, that, hey, you never know where rates can go instead of the way it was
Hmm.
stated in there. So,
Right. But then my point for asking you that is some people think, oh, well, I'll write a book and I'll be done. And it's like, why? There's more when you can personalize courses, books, material. Number one, don't just have one book if you have more knowledge in you, right? So, and then you want to specialize with veterans. And so that's
right.
a segment that you're obviously very, very passionate about. You're on the Rotary, you've got the podcast for it, you've donated time, money, effort, everything to that.
And
And
I'm
then you're
putting
saying,
together a firewalk for veterans.
there you go.
You didn't know that?
So
I not told
no,
you
I
that?
didn't know about that one.
Yeah, so I've been working on it for the last few months. I had somebody on a podcast of mine, Inner Edison podcast, David
Mhm.
Albin. He was on there about his whole story, and he ended up. Long story short, he worked for Anthony Robbins for 15 years, running his firewalks, doing them and setting them all up. So, and then he went out on
Where's he
his own.
based out of?
Like Tennessee or so, in the
Okay.
Appalachians mountains, back up in the mountains where those are. And those, yeah, you've seen the shows where he's based out back east somewhere. That's all I know. This side of the Mississippi, but that's I don't know. Anyway, so I talked to him, and it's something. He's a vet, and then it's a long story. I don't have all the time for it. Sorry, but he was talking about he wanted to put one together for vets, and I said I'm all in. Let me know how you're doing it, where you're setting it up. And then so they were supposed to do one on the East Coast. It fell apart because again of issues with doing the fire part. We're running into the same issues because I'm in California, but them not understanding how we're doing it and not really understanding, but trying, they're saying no instead of figuring out a way to get to yes. So I have to take it off of city property, can't do county. There's just things I have to do to make it right. I don't have a hotel that has a big enough parking lot to do it at the hotels like they do. That's our issue in our area. So
there's a company that's in South Lake, which is about 30 minutes away from me here, that they had the Firewalk Institute, and they were the ones that would also train the people who wanted to go be able to do firewalks. So that's why I was curious if it was the same.
He does the same thing too. He trains people too. Yeah, but his company is called Firewalk Adventures or something like that, I think. Yeah, but
oh, go ahead.
Oh, so how he got started was he was alcoholic, got cleaned. And his sponsor said, we're going to Tony Robbins event. They went to a Tony Robbins event, and they're saying, hey, they're doing firewalking. He's like, I don't want to do that. The guy's like, don't worry about it. Just here. Oh, you can't see close enough. Just get in this line. Next thing he's in front. He does the walking. He finds out that the people there, these certain shirts, they volunteer how to do it. So he comes back to volunteer. He does enough. And then all of a sudden he's asked to run it. And Tony asked him, can you run this? He's like, hey, I homeschool my kids. I can't do this. He goes, well, bring them with you. We'll pay for the whole family to come. And so for 15 years, he did that. And then he started, Google reached out to him and said, do you have a contract with Tony, or can you do something for us? And then he's done NASA. He's done so many different companies, and he's done broken glass walk, and firewalking. So
I haven't done the glass walk. I've done the fire. Wait, haven't I done a glass walk? Now I'm kind of thinking I may have, but I've definitely done the firewalk. I've done it twice. And it is interesting how you mentally prepare for it. And of course, they came to Dallas. This was in 2018. 2018, 20, anyway, 2015, 2016, somewhere around that time. And you're talking 10,000 people did it. And a few people would stop in the middle of it and burn their feet. And of course, that's what the news shows. Multiple people go to the, have to be taken away from the firewalk, not the tens of thousands who did it just fine. But, that's typical news for you is, try and put the negative on pretty much everything.
Yeah, exactly. And he says it has to be done at night so I can see the color of the coals, that whole thing.
Yeah.
But if it's during the day, you do glass walk.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to look and think because I've done the, break an arrow on your neck, chest area or whatever it is. I think we did on my neck. I've done the walk on fire, break through bricks, break through wood.
Did it help you?
And it did. It helps with limited, what we call limited mindsets of what you don't think is possible and what you realize you can do with the right thing. And so I'm one of those that I distrusted things by nature when I first went. So before they would give us the boards, I went and found one. I was trying to figure out where they cut so they would easily break. So I was trying to see
pine breaks easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the pine boards, because of the way the grain is, you hit it breaks. It's not the breaking of it's the event of breaking the board, not the amount of pressure it takes to break the board. You're not a karate guy. And that's like those karate people do kick and they have all these boards and he kicks 6 boards and breaks them all. Yes. It's going to break them anyway because they're pine. It's just a matter of watching him kick. If someone put walnut or oak, he would break a foot. It wouldn't break as much. Yeah. Pine breaks. Yeah. That's why you use it. Yeah.
Ooh, did not know that. See? Look at the information Ed knows.
Well, it's because I worked with wood when I was a kid. We had wood shop in the, when I was a kid, we had metal shop and we had auto mechanics. Anyway, had wood shop.
Yeah. Well, we did have there was a guy that we had.
You're a shop teacher, huh? Yeah. How could you tell? I'm a shop teacher?
Exactly. I was going to say there was a guy that we had as a shop teacher was missing a finger. And I remember one time he was warning people, like when you're using the, what's the main table saw?
Like, bandsaw.
Yeah. Don't try. People would always want to try and get the spare pieces out. And what would happen is the saw would catch and like shoot one, just across the room. And so it is kind of funny because do they even teach that anymore? No. I feel like people would be so sue worthy now that that's not even a class.
Well, no, the problem is that's why we are 650,000 trade workers short right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Because of that. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. I had a conversation with my Uber driver today. She had a 10-year-old. I said, do you think your 10-year-old will even go to college? She's like, well, yes, but only because I wanted to have specialized degrees. But if you look, she said, if it wasn't for he wanted to be some special degree, she's like, I'd put him in a trade school. I wouldn't put him in college.
No, trade school. I mean, right now they make so much money in trades because there's nobody. The plumbers are quitting because they're getting older. So it's the amount of work that's there. What are you laughing at? I mean, they're in the late 40s, early 50s. They're going to be retiring. Yeah.
Yes. Have you seen the South Park episode where all the tradespeople are like the super rich now?
Mm-mm. No.
There's a great episode.
The last one I watched was Cred for about a few minutes.
Okay. Have
you seen that one?
I was in a hotel. No, but you were talking about it last week because somebody commented on it when we were doing it.
Yeah. Cred, because it's like Prime.
Yes.
But it's Cred. So it's the same colors of the Prime, but they call it Cred. I got Cred. And they would put it out so they could see it on their backpack so they could show they have cred.
That's funny. You go watch. I'll find the one. I'll send it to you. But it's basically that people are trying to get their houses and everything fixed. And like the plumber shows up in a Bentley and comes out with like a cape on and a crown and everything. He's like, yeah, I can fix it. And it'll be like, $2 million. And so nothing's getting fixed in South Park because nobody learned trade skills. And so they're the ones that are basically the richest people are all the people who have to help everybody with their houses. And they all just will take money and then they're going to the highest bidder. So nobody's house is getting fixed. And, South Park's extremely tongue in cheek, but it's true. If you look at those businesses now, because of lack of people, because we made this whole big thing of, you have to go into corporate America and you have to get this corporate job, that you're right. It's a dwindling supply, but there's an increased demand with more and more houses being built and more houses getting older.
David Albin likes your show. Anyway, he likes all my shit now. Nice guy, but you're right because just there isn't enough. It's just like that Money Pit movie from the 80s. all those
Yes.
guys that come out and fix it, they're all in Jaguars and other stuff, and they, you know, that do that because they're making so much money because it's where it's at and to get the job done and how expensive it is. And that's our so we went from that to had enough people in the 90s, and then the 2000s, you got to go to college. Now we don't have enough trades. People don't want to work outside. It's hot.
Right.
But most, you know, there's so many things you can do in trades and make really good money. Plumbers are 140 grand a year to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, and to start, then you start getting into high-end, you know, buildings and things. You get a reputation, you build your authority, like what we're talking about here. You get known as somebody who does good work, and you get referrals, and it just grows and grows and grows. There's a guy in one of the masterminds I'm in, and he said something that blew my mind. He's like, we only work from 9 to 5. We're not the plumber you call at night when you've got a water problem or a water heater. We don't have an after hours if you need us. So what they are is they are more of a remodel, get things done. They're not the break fix, because he's built his authority. And he's got a podcast, and he's known as the plumber who pets dogs and fixes pipes. You know, but it blew my mind because I thought all plumbers had to be on call 24 hours a day, you know, before the shitter's full or, you know, water heater's broken. And they're like, no, that's not how we do business. Nobody on my team is on call. We only do work during those hours because we built up that level of expertise and reputation.
They don't want to be the emergency $200 an hour at night. So
exactly.
Yeah. But there are those who want to be that. So they're off during the day, and they last minute, they get, you know, as much money as they can for 1 or 2 jobs, and they don't have to work as much. So.
Right. So it's just back to kind of what we're going for in this whole theme of 2024. I guess we started in 2023, but if you can become the authority and you get yourself out there, then you can start setting your demands, your wants, your desires, versus when you start, you do everything for free. So like me speaking, you know, I volunteered, spoke for free, paid for an opportunity to speak, covered my own travel, no hotel, no airfare, anything. And I had to do that to get a reputation and get social media credit and meet people and be in the right rooms. Then it comes to now it's people who pay you to do it, the same thing. And like you, when you started out, you didn't just instantly have clients, right? When you got into the mortgage business, you had to build a reputation. You had to do good work. You had to follow up, do all these different things, keep learning. And you happen to find something that you're passionate about, you love, and that is obviously radio and things to get yourself out there and keep building that authority so that you can build the business the way you want to do it.
No, I found out what I like to do, which is talk.
Yeah.
I found out what I'm good at, having a conversation. I'm a conversationalist, and that's what I enjoy doing. And that's whether I'm sitting with a client or whatever. It's all about them. It's not about me, right? And the same as this. When we have guests on, it's about them, not me. Right. That's what it's all. I've learned to promote the other people, and then that in turn will help promote me.
We just talked about this at the door-to-door con of you can tell the speakers who get up because they want the admiration, they want to be seen, versus the speakers who want to get up and help other people. And you can feel it and see it. You can see who's up there for those two reasons, and it makes a huge difference. So
I agree. I totally agree.
You want to hear my funny tidbit from this past trip?
Yeah, because we're kind of at 38 minutes.
Yeah. So what I snowboard. Now I haven't done it in 7 years, but since I was in Utah, I stayed an extra day because last year I had to come right back. And this year I'm like, well, okay, I don't need to be back. So I'll spend Sunday out there and I'll fly home on Monday. And I decided to go snowboarding with some people. And I bought these gloves that are reinforced for your wrists because snowboarders fall on their wrists a lot. Well, the glove fits on.
Not if you're goofy foot. You mean, are you goofy foot?
I'm goofy, but it's gloves that reinforce your wrists because
because you fall backwards, right?
Right, backwards or forwards. And so what's your natural
but most of the time, most people, it depends on your foot more than anything which way you fall.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Well, yeah. So which way are you turning? So you can mousetrap, which is you fly forward and you put your hands out, or if you, to your point, if I'm goofy, I'm forward and I fall backwards, what's the natural reaction is to stick your hands straight out. And that's where people break their wrist. So I was getting off the ski lift. And as I was getting off the ski lift, you have one foot strapped in, one that's loose. And I hate getting off the ski lift. So I always look for the gondolas. Sure enough, get off the ski lift and I go to turn and I just fall on my butt. And so what happens, your hands go down to brace that impact. And it hurt for a minute. And I got up and my wrist started buzzing. And I thought it was somebody trying to call. I'm like, I'm trying to get out of the rest of the ski lifts lane, right? Because you don't want them to have to stop and other skiers can't get off. So I'm like trying to move and scramble, get out of the way. And I didn't think anything of it. So I finally get up and I walk inside and my phone's ringing again. I thought, okay, I'll just see who it is this time. And it said like 801 something from the city. And so I answered. I'm like, this is Brian. They're like, are you in need of emergency assistance? I'm like, what? And they're like, this is 911. Your Apple Watch called us because it said you were in a crash.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't in a crash. I had to explain the whole thing. They're like, where are you? I'm like, I'm at the Needle restaurant at the top of the mountain. I said, it just got off a second ago. And they're like, so you're okay? I said, yes. I said, okay, because your watch called us.
Yeah.
And what I looked at after that is, so there's here, of course, it creates the impact, but then your wrist in it, I guess if you hold down the what's it, the head on the watch or whatever,
the stem or whatever,
the stem, yeah. If you hold that down for too long, it's like holding it down the button on your phone that you can call 911 with.
Oh.
But because the way I fell, and then it also pinched that, it thought I was in a car accident. So,
well, if you hit hard, it thinks you had fallen and you need help. It gives you a moment to say, because I've had it in the garage doing something, weightlifting, and splam, and it's like, you need help, and I'm like,
well, and because
I turned it off. Yeah, I think
the gondola, you're coming across, and then you suddenly stop, and then you have that impact. So I thought I was in a car and got into a car accident. I'm like, no, I just suck at snowboarding. So I don't. Yeah.
I had a story, the same thing about getting off those, because I used to snowboard a lot. And I used to ski a lot, and I knew how to ski real well, but I didn't want to take the same amount of time to learn to snowboard. So I took a ton of lessons, and that's how I got really good. But my son would go with me, and when I'd get off the thing, it would swing the fucking chair and throw his ass across, because I'd push to get off, and I'm at, 3 times the size of him at the time.
So I finally overcame my fear and quit doing gondolas after that. Did one more, but that was the same thing. I just getting off. I'm great with everything else. Like, I was being, in fairness, I probably spent 25% of my time on my butt, but 75% of the time on my board. It was, for not doing it in 7 years, is good, but getting off those damn chair lifts gets me every time. So fun fact, if you do it and you fall, your Apple Watch can call 911 because it can think you're in a car accident.
Same with riding a bicycle or anything. And that's, for me, it's like, I like snowboarding, but what I don't like about it is the lack of control to a certain point, right? You can't, you're buckled in. Where I like where the new way skis are now, and how skis work, it's so much easier than when I learned the skis I freaking learned on. They didn't cut like they do now.
Yeah. See, I tried a day or half day lesson of skiing, and I hated the entire thing. Big guy going down a hill, trying to pizza wedge, didn't work. And in all fairness, I never used to do legs back in the day. And so all I could do was make left turns, and that was it. And then one time I made a left turn, and I started going backwards. I'm like, oh crap, what do I do now? So strap me into a snowboard. I'm good. I didn't like having yard sales and having to go get my poles from back there and, everything else. So I'm a little bit sore today. I'm feeling that pain, but it was a lot of fun yesterday.
Always like the second day.
Yeah. So
any workout's always the second day that makes it worse. Yeah, wrap it up for us, will you?
Second day sore. Yes. All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining us here on Aces53. The best way to support us is to subscribe to the channel and follow us here. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday is Ed and I. Thursday, we sometimes bring in a joker, which is a special person who has a skill or a gift that they're going to share with us to help you get just a little bit better. So with that being said, everybody have a great day.
And this week's a surprise. We'll surprise you what we're doing.
That's true. Thanks for being here, Ed.
All right. Thank you for joining me. Make it a great day.